Everyone knew it was banned. The rules were public. The tests were routine. The consequences were well documented. And yet, athletes kept using it anyway, even after getting caught. In professional sports, banned substances usually follow a predictable cycle. They appear quietly, offer an advantage, and spread. Eventually, testing improves, athletes are caught, and the substance disappears. This one didn't. It survived crackdowns, it survived suspensions, it survived public scandals. Not because athletes misunderstood the risk, but because the risk was manageable. By the late 90s and early 2000s, enforcement agencies believed they were making progress. Positive tests began appearing after major competitions. Athletes were escorted away from venues. Press releases followed within hours. Suspensions were announced. 6 months, 9 months, sometimes a year. But inside training camps, the message was different. Athletes watched teammates leave, then watched them come back. Often to the same teams, often to the same training groups, sometimes to better contracts. The lesson wasn't theoretical, it was visible. As more athletes were caught, a pattern emerged. A positive test surfaced. The athlete was removed quietly. A statement was issued. Then the system moved on. Teams adjusted lineups, events continued, sponsors waited. Months later, the athlete returned. Not secretly, not disgraced, reintroduced as eligible again. That mattered, because eligibility signaled acceptance. The real value of the substance was never visible on race day. Fans saw the result. Officials saw the finish. Testing focused on competition windows, but the advantage was built earlier, during training phases, when no one was watching. Athletes using the substance could absorb more work without breaking down. They could increase training volume while others had to stop. They could stack hard sessions without losing form. Elite performance isn't created during competition. It's created months earlier, during altitude camps, during rehabilitation, during long stretches of preparation where fatigue decides who survives the program. Clean athletes had to manage recovery carefully. They skipped sessions. They extended rest. Athletes using the substance didn't. They trained when others paused. That difference compounded quietly. By the time competition arrived, the advantage was already locked in, not as a single explosive gain, but as accumulated capacity. More work completed, more adaptation gained, more resilience built, and none of it happened in front of cameras. By this point, the substance already had a name. It wasn't secret, it wasn't emerging, and it wasn't misunderstood. It was erythropoietin, commonly known as EPO. By then, it had been banned for years. Athletes had already seen teammates suspended for it. They had already seen careers questioned. They had already seen titles stripped. The warning signs weren't subtle. They were televised. And yet, the behavior didn't stop. Inside teams, it wasn't discussed as a gamble anymore. It was discussed as a known risk. Athletes didn't ask whether it was banned. They asked how others had been caught. They didn't debate consequences. They compared suspensions. After the ban, usage didn't vanish. It became scheduled. Athletes avoided competition windows. They shifted use to heavy training periods. They planned around known testing gaps. The goal wasn't to cheat on race day. It was to arrive already conditioned. By the time testing occurred, the work had already been done. Under strict liability, intent didn't matter. That changed locker room conversations. Athletes stopped debating fairness. They debated odds. How often testing happened? Who got selected? What happened on a first offense? These weren't moral questions. They were logistical ones. A suspension looks like an ending from the outside. Competition stops. Results disappear. Public attention fades. Inside a suspension, careers don't pause. They reorganize. Athletes keep training, often with fewer distractions. No travel, no media, no competitive calendar. Preparation becomes the priority. Fitness is rebuilt methodically, weaknesses are addressed. Long-term conditioning replaces short-term performance. In many cases, athletes return physically stronger. Facilities remain available, medical support continues, coaching relationships stay intact. What's lost is visibility. What's gained is time. The advantage gained before detection isn't erased. It's preserved. Once an athlete has seen the process once, the second decision is easier, not because the rules change, but because uncertainty disappears. The repeat offense loop becomes clear. First, observation, then calculation, then action, then consequence, then absorption. Suspension ends, eligibility returns. The system resets. The loop is learnable. And the system provides examples repeatedly. By the time a second offense happens, it rarely feels like defiance. It feels like continuation. Each enforcement escalation followed the same pattern. Rules expanded, testing improved, penalties adjusted, athletes adapted. Usage shifted, timing changed, preparation moved further from view. Enforcement was reactive, advantage was proactive. Bans became symbols of effort, not solutions. The behavior persisted, not in defiance of the system, but alongside it. For athletes who chose not to use the substance, the pressure was different. They trained under the same expectations, without the same margins. They managed recovery carefully. They skipped sessions, others completed. What hurt wasn't losing. It was uncertainty. When rivals improved suddenly, there was no proof, only doubt. Speaking up carried risk. Silence became rational, not approval, resignation. Trust eroded quietly. The first scandal shocked fans. The fifth felt routine. Announcement, suspension, return. What once ended careers became process. The substance is still banned. Testing still happens. Athletes are still caught. What's changed is interpretation. A positive test no longer feels like an ending. It feels like a pause. Careers stop briefly, then resume. Results remain. Records stay printed. And every return teaches the same lesson again. That enforcement reacts. That preparation survives. That time smooths consequences. The decision never disappears. It just gets deferred. Some athletes will always choose caution. Others will always choose risk. Not because they believe they're invisible, but because they've seen what happens when you're not. Until punishment outweighs advantage, until deterrence reaches preparation instead of performance, this cycle won't end. It will stabilize. Quietly, legally, and repeatedly, long after the headlines move on. Thanks a lot for watching. If you liked this video, consider smashing the subscribe button. Also, right here is another video we believe you'll enjoy.